This is the fourth week in property investment and finance. In this module, we're going to be adding taxation into our DCF model. This gives us the opportunity to review the way that taxation works. And because we're putting it into our DCF model, I think for some of you, it might be an opportunity to understand some of the workings of taxation in a deeper way to what you've probably encountered it already. We're going to be looking primarily at income tax. We're not going to be going into all the complexity of Australian progressive income tax with its different tax rates and so on, certainly not in the modelling. But we'll be assuming that the investor, in our example, has another form of income which brings them up to a particular tax rate. So we're going to be looking at a single tax rate situation, which simplifies the calculation somewhat. It is actually also the appropriate way of analysing an income stream which is, if you like, a marginal, an extra income stream, because it's always being taxed at that marginal rate. For those of you who are mathematically inclined, you may want to give some thought to the way that in the way that Australian progressive taxation works, every extra dollar is taxed at the highest rate, the marginal rate that the taxpayer is due for. This is not so much of an issue with company taxation, which is a single rate, but certainly for personal taxation, it is a consideration. It actually simplifies it, because if you are faced with having to estimate the tax impacts for a particular investor, you can get carried away with the complexity of saying, well, where is their income before and after? What's their total tax rate before and after? And the mathematics becomes very complicated. By looking at the marginal rate, assuming they're not straddling a tax threshold with their investment, the mathematics actually is, in reality, very simple. So take close note of that, give it some thought. As I say, if you're interested in really what's going on, there's an opportunity here to understand taxation through the case study that we see in the DCF. We're also going to be talking in a summary way about GST, goods and services tax, and also capital gains tax. We're not intending to bring you away from the unit as experts in taxation. That's really a specialised area in itself. But to introduce you to the way that tax affects property investment. And so that is appropriate for property investment analysis, which is very important. And for those of you who want to take it further, certainly going to the resources which are quite plentifully available, especially on the Australian Tax Office, the ATO's website. And so if you are interested in this, go to the ATO website and delve a bit deeper. You'll find it particularly interesting for property investment area. Look at things like the way that GST is treated for property investment. Also depreciation is interesting and well covered on the ATO website. Those areas are a bit above the core learning for the unit. But for those of you who are interested in property investment, I think you'll find any investment of time in understanding these issues very satisfying and very rewarding. The exercises in the new module will take you further into the DCF model and, in fact, basically complete it. We keep talking about completing it. Last week we were completing it to the extent of having an untaxed model giving us NPVs and IRRs and so on, which is appropriate when we're not considering the investor, which tends to be more the valuation perspective. This week, by putting taxation into the model, we are taking the complete untaxed model, and now we have it complete from a taxation point of view, which starts to move the perspective towards the investor. And so those of you who are studying this unit as part of a financial planning, a financial advisory course or major, will find that you'll be more interested with the investor perspective. And we're going to be taking that a bit forward, especially in the next few weeks, especially as we move away from the mathematical side into the concepts that affect the behavior and the performance of the investment from the point of view of the investor and the investor's decision-making preferences and inclinations. So tax, very important in our world, and so this module is very important for understanding property investment analysis.